is it like you just kind of watching someone on social media, or is it so much better? Like, what are some places that people are meeting each other out there in college?
Well, people. I think okay. So as young men that go to Christian college,
Mm.
people put the label, "Oh, Christian dating." Like I don't think it's Christian dating, but it's just a man dating a woman. I think people tend to put a label on Christians, and I was asking one of my friends actually, and he said, um, "There's no way we like. There's no difference in how we court women, um, opposed to Christian colleges. We all court women the same way." So
Is that true?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, we were
In
talking.
my opinion.
Yeah, we were talking about this. I mean, just a few minutes ago, and I agree with him, and it's kind of interesting. But there's always, at the very root, it is a little different. And we kind of talked about just at the very beginning is allowing God to be the foundation of
Okay.
who you want as a future spouse, or just in relationships, even just friendships. Um, and that's the main difference, is that when you're going into it, when you're trying to find someone that you find someone you're attracted to, the questions are a little different. Does she love God? Does she have a steady relationship with God? But besides that, it's definitely, I would say, it's kind of like you said, it's very similar.
Mhm.
So
I mean, there must be a reason why your parents have invested the money,
Right.
and you made the decision to go to not just a Christian college or university, but a Seventh Day Adventist one.
Right.
My guess is that you guys are interested in finding somebody who's Seventh Day Adventist,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So on campus, I mean, where are places, or what are things that are going on campus where you can actually meet people? You met this young lady in the gym.
Yes.
I've heard that you spend some time in the gym.
Yeah, I love going to the gym.
Okay, so sports, gym.
Sports gym. That's where I like. That's where I meet most of my friends. I meet them anywhere that any facility that's fitness related. So that's where I usually meet my friends and females.
You are very athletic. Yeah.
Appreciate
Ben,
it.
Ben, you said God is important. So, where are some places where godly women hang out?
I mean, in my own personal experience, a lot of them have been just in friend groups, people I know that if I have a friend who is godly, I know he has a relationship, and I hang out with him. A
Yeah.
lot of times you find other, women, or just friendships through them. It's kind of a lot about who you hang out with. On top of that, there's a bunch of clubs. I mean, I know at a bunch of other Seventh Adventist colleges, and all colleges, they have
Right.
clubs to get people together, and they can fellowship, get to know each other, make new friends. And I think, at least at Southern, there are a lot of spiritual related ones. You can go to
Okay.
Bible studies. There's a lot of, I mean, even not spiritual ones. And I think that is also a great place for meeting people. It's more of a casual setting where you can get to know people, and you get to meet a lot of people that way.
I've always encouraged young people like yourself in college, take advantage of what is there. I mean,
Right.
soak up the environment. I mean, they may have places that you can go, or they set up events. The SA sets up events, and
Right.
each department, they set up their own little event, or they may have a Vespers. And there's many churches in the area. Obviously, you need to find the church that you're comfortable with, and hopefully, there are some people there that you can get to know. But you guys mentioned circle of friends is very important, right?
Friends is very, very important.
Circle of friends is very important. You probably do meet a lot of people through not just who you know, but who your friends also associate with, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if we're trying to find people that are similar to ourselves, it's important to spend time in those environments
Mhm.
where those people are. It's kind of like fishing. I hate to bring up the example of hunting because it gets very caveman like, oh, I'm hungry, I need to hunt, and I'm looking for a wife, so I need to hunt. And it's not like that, but there is a certain amount of wisdom that when I'm going to fish, I need to be near the water,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And if I'm looking for a certain type of person, then I need to put myself in that type of environment. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, is it not?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, it's uncomfortable. I mean, I remember in college also. I mean, I would go to a lot of different functions. It's kind of silly. I met my wife. This is a real quick story. at PUC they had an open house for the dorms, for the ladies' dorms, and they had Andre and Winning, and Groff was a dorm. It wasn't as popular because they just started opening it up to new residents. And I had a friend of mine who actually stayed in Groff. None of my guy friends wanted to go. They're like, I don't want to go to an open house, and I was like, well, I can go meet some girls. So I went by myself. I went to Groff, and it turns out my friend, her roommate, is actually now my wife. And I remember that meeting. I remember going into their room, checking things out, seeing my friend, and seeing Kim for the first time. And the interesting thing is, we never dated after that. It was not like this love at first sight thing, but it was a connection that when we met several years later after college, we were able to connect because we knew each other from then. So the point that I'm getting at is, one, we need to get out of our comfort zone a little bit, right? Go into these environments where we can meet people. Number one, face-to-face contact is very, very important, right? Number two, it's about making friends, isn't it?
Right.
I think you take a lot of the pressure off if you're just trying to meet people instead of hunt for.
For individual.
Did you mention
Yeah.
something like that before, Gilmore, about these guys that like maybe
Yeah,
like trying too hard?
Yeah, I believe that once you graduate high school and you enter the college setting, most guys are like, education is not even on their mind. It's like, oh, let me try to hunt this girl down, or I got oh, I see this girl, she's attractive, I'm gonna go ask her out. Well, I think our mindset should be, we should educate ourselves at the school that our parents paid for us, and as time goes on, and if we have a good relationship with God, God's gonna bless us with the woman that He wants us to be with. So.
Yeah. And I mean, just going off of that, I like your analogy with the fishing. I mean, for anyone who's gone fishing, you don't just, oh, I'm gonna go catch a fish. You throw your line in and catch a fish instantly. Everyone knows that it takes time, it takes patience, you have to wait it out. You can't just throw any type of bait in and get any type of fish.
It takes effort.
It takes
Right.
a lot of effort.
It does take effort.
I mean, at least in my experience, it's definitely. I mean, we can talk about more about this, but mentors, people who know how to fish, you know. So I think that also. So I like that analogy. It's patient. It's not like you said, just going and hunting instantly. I want a girlfriend, right? I mean, all my friends got one, so I need to get one. That's why I like that analogy. I think it's very good at displaying the patient side of relationships.
Well, Jesus asked us to be fishers of men.
Right.
We'll be fishers of women.
Yeah.
Diligently.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some social situations, right? So you're out hanging out with your bunch of friends and stuff like that. It's important this friends first concept. Why is that so important when it comes to Christian dating? Instead of getting too serious too fast, could there be challenges with getting too serious with someone too fast when you don't really actually know them?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because I actually experienced something similar to that.
Oh,
I asked the girl out just because she was attractive,
sure.
but we had nothing in common.
Nothing.
We had nothing in common, so it was very awkward. We were just eating. I was asking all the questions. She was very silent and quiet, and it was the most awkward date I've ever been on. So I think it's very important to have that, foundation of friendship, because once you have the foundation, you guys get to know each other. You guys share similarities, common likes, dislikes, and it's like friendship is a foundation to, I think, anything good.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think it. I don't know if we'll talk about this now or later, but I mean, it goes into what we were talking about earlier, being unequally yoked. When we look at 2 Corinthians 6:14, it says, "Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness?" And so, I mean, not only just common likes and dislikes; those are definitely important. I mean, like you said, they were made. It was made for social pleasure. It wasn't made specifically like, oh, you need to get it just to reproduce. Reproduce the earth. God made it as a pleasure for man and women to get into relationships.
Right.
So that's a part. But then also the spiritual, is spiritual common ground, or do you believe the same beliefs? Do you, uh, maybe you are in love with Christ and you have a day-to-day relationship, but then you find someone who's attractive, and then you find they're not really as interested. So I think it's very, um, very important to find someone that is to take the time to find someone who is interested and has the same religious beliefs, the same kind of spiritual climate as you. So
Making friends should be fun.
Right.
yeah,
And I do believe this because I've seen this. Um, your generation, great generation, very important group of young people coming up. We need leaders. We need. Uh, there's a lot of very very important things that your generation is going to bring or is bringing already, and you can see that on social media. But I think social media has stunted the growth a little bit of being able to interact and meet people directly.
yeah,
Right.
I think people can hide behind social media. It can be a crutch a little bit. They think, well, if I just put in a couple words on a text or something, that is already bridging the gap. But back in my day, we didn't have cell phones at all. Forget about email, text, internet. We had you pick up the phone. So the interaction is face to face. And body language is 90% of body language. Maybe not that high, but the majority of body language is this
Yep.
body language communication. I'm sorry, the majority of it is body language. Yeah, not just the words that we speak, like in a text. How many times have you sent a text out and it was completely misunderstood?
Yeah.
And then you're sending more texts to try and understand what they misunderstood, and it gets more confusing. It's it's a mode of communication, but it's not necessarily good for courtship. When we're getting to know people, just like you said, Gilmer, hey, I took her out to eat. I wanted some one-on-one time. But I'll tell you, I found there's a lot of advantages dating as a group.
Oh yeah, that
Going two on two, the Bible talks about two on two. I know it might be a little different, but hey, God said go two on two. I can remember many times I'd see a beautiful woman, and I'd ask my buddy, hey, ask her friend out, and then see if she'll bring her friend. And so the two of us would go to. I don't want to give away any secrets here. Is this common knowledge?
Yeah.
Is this being recorded? Okay.
yeah.
I better be careful of the tips that I'm throwing out here. But yeah, two on two. It's like, and then go as a group, or go as a lot of social groups together to hang out together. It's a lot more casual, and it's easier to make friends first. That makes sense.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the pressure off, I would say.
Sure. Sure. Um, let's see. You were talking about unequally yoked.
Yes.
Gilmer, do you have
Yeah.
anything to mention about
Yeah, I think this
unequally
goes
yoked?
back to like if the person is Christian,
Yeah.
and I think we could also bring the parents into the equation into this because
Sure.
I think parents have a lot to say when we're dating a particular young woman, and so do is she a believer? When we are dating or we're in a relationship, marriage isn't mine. So once we're married, I think it's really important for the female to be a believer because if she isn't, then there could be so many disagreements. Let's say one Sabbath, you're going to church. She says like, oh, we got a friend's birthday party, to go to, and you're a believer. Yeah, and we know the commandments. Honor the seventh day, and so I think it's really important to marry someone who is a believer because as this Bible verse says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness, with lawlessness, and what communion has light with darkness. So I think this goes to say that.
Now you mentioned just now that when you said when you were dating, you had marriage on the mind. Now, could that be that maybe could that scare a lady away if you're you're starting out, but maybe or are you basically saying that when you're dating,
Yeah,
it's because you're trying to be serious about really building a relationship. You're not just fooling around, having fun. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what I was thinking. I think it's also like a relationship that's already like 2 or 3 months. 3 months in. then you kind of have like, oh, like, this is going to be a longer relationship than expected. If it's one date and you figure out, oh, this is not the person for me, then that's just one date. But I think if a relationship is like 2 to 3 months, a year maybe, then that's when you already have the thinking of, oh, this is someone that I plan on spending the rest of my life with. So
Then you have any?
I mean, just to add to that, I think there is a lot of I think a lot of times. I mean, I'll even personally, you kind of get excited with the idea of like, oh, I want to be in a relationship. I like this person. I like hanging out. But you kind of choose not to think about the end goal because you don't want to worry about the stress of it, or it's just like I don't really want to have that. It's too much pressure. I just want to have fun, And there's definitely room for like fun and just enjoying yourself. And but if you look in Testimonies for the Church, Mrs. White says, that nowadays there's very little true love. A lot of times it is passion and frivolity, and it's more for fun. And I think when you read, you can even find examples in the Bible of, it's well, more Mrs. White. You can find a lot of examples in Mrs. White. She talks a lot about it, and it kind of opens the way for, well, if we're not going to get married, if that's not the goal, then it doesn't really matter as much. I can kind of be more loose with what we do, kind of allow myself to get into certain situations that I wouldn't otherwise if I knew I was going to get married to this person. Um, so I think that plays a role. I mean,
You both are making a very important point with this. That when you're dating, it's for a real purpose. It's not just to like hopefully take advantage of somebody or just satisfy some desires or what have you, because you're trying to respect that individual. Because obviously you want to be respected back also, right? And I think it's true, especially when you look in the world today. You look at relationships portrayed in the media, in entertainment, and it's very provocative and very physical attraction from the beginning, and they're going so far so fast, and obviously God's not even in the picture anywhere. But can they get themselves, obviously they can get themselves in trouble by going that route so fast and then not really even knowing the person. Yeah.
I think it's also a lot of what we watch, like, favorite TV shows. For example, Grey's Anatomy. You see like people making love it
Right away.
right away, and it's
Right
kind of
away.
like when you watch it, it's just like, oh, this is probably what we should do.
Right.
So like that, and my dad also said something after Twilight, after dark, you shouldn't be with a woman because things tend to happen.
She's not your wife.
She's not your wife.
Right.
So it just speaks volumes on what we watch and what we hear, because what we behold,
We become.
exactly. So also with friends who we hang out with, we also become. So we also have to watch it.
I mean, I think when we were talking about this the other day, Mrs. Scarpino brought up that just 4 hours, or was it someone brought up like even just 4 hours of like one-on-one time without any other interaction from other humans, you kind of allow yourself to go into a more dangerous zone, especially later at night.
Right.
So, but I think it all kind of goes back to just you have to keep the end goal in mind. I mean, and then that also leads into God. I mean, if you don't have God in the picture, if He's not part of the end goal, a godly relationship, you can still get into trouble.
Sure.
You can go aim for a marriage without God, and you're still gonna allow yourself to get into temptations and some deep trouble. So,
Absolutely. So let's talk about Exodus 20:12. I think I was going to throw the Ten Commandments in here at you guys. Exodus 20:12. But when it comes to relationships, this I think is key. Honor your mother, your father, and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord has given you. Who on this earth, other than God, knows you probably better than anybody else? Parents. Whether we like it or not, whether we get along with them all the time or not. Sometimes we might butt heads with them. Sometimes we're so much like them that we may butt heads or what have you. At the end of the day, many times they know us better than we realize. I remember when I was your age, I really had some challenges with my mom. My mom Tiger Mom likes to push, wants the best for me, best intentions in mind, obviously loves me, but push, she would push. And we would butt heads, and we would have a lot of arguments. And then at the end of the day, now that I'm a little bit older, I realize many of the things she said, most of the things she said, when she said them, were actually correct at the time. In fact, it says right here, Proverbs 10:1. You want to read it? Why don't you read it? It is a good one.
Yeah, I'll read it. It says, the Proverbs of Solomon: a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother.
I can even speak. I haven't really had a whole lot of experience dating, but it's the exact same story as you. My mom, we're similar, and we tend to really butt heads. And even in the relationships I've been in, I've been in situations where my mom has been where I have prayed and I've looked at how you interact with each other, and I don't think this is the best relationship for you. At the time, of course, I was like, no, mom. Like, I know that you love me, but I think I'm right. I think I understand.
Right.
But every single time she's brought that up, it's always ended up coming out as a problem later on. I think it's so easy. We always think as teenagers. I'm not saying that I don't now, because I still do all the time. We think that we know it is best, but in reality, our parents really do know us better than we know ourselves sometimes. So I think that's important when it comes to finding people, is taking heed to your parents.
Definitely getting their blessing, their opinion, but their blessing on who we're dating is very important. And of course, they can't see the future or anything like that. What did that say, Jesse? 20 minutes left? We're at 40 already?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You guys
Okay.
having a great time up there. It's hard to interject with you guys. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay,
but I also think
yes.
friends also correlate with like what parents have to say, because if friends tell you to do something, you're like, oh, I'd rather listen to my friends as opposed to listening to my parents. So we tend to listen to friends sometimes, and that's what I think the saying of be hang out with people that will help you become better people. So if you have good friends, then it's most likely that they will share the same belief as your parents. So.
Well, we've got to start wrapping up here. When it comes to obviously having your parents' opinion, and it's very important. I can tell you from experience that not just my parents, but my now in-laws, it's extremely important that we get along and get along really well, and that we're equally yoked also, because we spend so much time with them, because the grandkids are involved. So I know it's hard to see down the road, but I'm just letting you know, you're married, you have children, you have in-laws. That whole equally yoked and honoring them, your parents, extremely important to keep the family happy and intact, cohesive. Because, like Ben said in the beginning, the devil is attacking the foundation of marriage, is attacking the institution of marriage, the sanctity of a man and a woman in marriage, because it reflects the church ultimately. And so it is being attacked. And by attacking the men and the women and the marriage, it's shattering the family unit. And this is exactly what we're seeing out there. This is part of the battles that we're dealing with. And one of a great example is here that you can look up on your own. I don't have time to get into it. Is the marriage of Isaac that was found in Genesis 24. What a fantastic story. Long story short, Abraham wanted to find a spouse, an appropriate wife for Isaac. And Isaac was willing to trust his father and God to let them find his wife for him. That really is the summary. Put himself aside, trusted his father enough, and trusted God enough to have them find the right woman, Rebecca, for him. Now, Gilmore, I know you had a quick list there of some dating something. I know we covered some.
Yeah, we covered some. So there was surrendering your dating relationships and aspirations to God. I think we covered that.
I just mentioned that.
Yeah. Do your parents approve of the person you're dating?
Honor your father and mother.
Is the person Christian?
Are they? Okay.
Establishing clear boundaries and sticking to your beliefs.
Mm,
which is actually found in First Thessalonians 5:22.
please,
Anyone
please share that.
who get there faster.
Oh boy. Pressure on. Jesus Bible.
Gilmer will get there. Ben,
Yeah,
I know you've got a lot of other material in there that we haven't.
Oh, and on this.
Covered.
Oh yeah. I mean,
You've got some more sayings that Sister White's.
This one's very
Yeah,
short
sure.
and quick, very concise. It says, "Abstain from every form of evil." So,
There you go.
yeah, that, and then there's maintaining sexual purity and avoiding sexual temptation. We covered that. And does this relationship improve your relationship with God, family, and friends?
You know, the one just before that, the sexual purity and the temptations, it really obscures the ability to see the person for who they are.
Right.
Because it
Yeah.
becomes about a pleasure feeling thing.
Superficial.
Superficial
Yeah.
versus heart. If I'm really spending time, it's almost like cultivating a long distance relationship. Well, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to take that time, make that time, spend that time over the phone, communicating, building, getting to know each other. So in some ways, that's exactly the foundation of building that relationship.
I mean, this is kind of random thought that popped in my mind. An analogy. I mean, you could buy a car, and I mean, I know a lot of guys. We like to go fast in our cars. We like to, you wear the car down a lot. And if you know that you're gonna only have the car for a certain amount of time, and it doesn't really matter taking care of the car, you're gonna run it to the ground. You're gonna wear the tires bald. You're gonna run the engine down. But when you know that it's a car that you want to keep forever, you maybe even like keep it for your later generations. You really put the time and you really put the effort in to take care of your car, changing the oil, changing the tires. So I mean, just a little it came into my mind. It's a good analogy. So
well, hopefully we're not going to be in too much trouble because we've referred to women as fish and a car.
Boy. Yeah. Oh boy.
So what else do you have? I know you guys have a couple more quotes in there. Why don't you go ahead and share that with everybody, and we can wrap things up.
While he's finding this, just one thing going off of what he said, staying pure, and I mean, just a little reminder. Mrs. White says, I forgot to write down the actual reference, but she says, "Were your position, your attitude, your affections such that you would want them all registered in the ledger of heaven." And I think it's something so easy to forget that everything we do is being written in heaven. Everything we do is being watched. I mean, and we don't want to have a spirit of fear. We don't want fear, and that's why. But it is something to keep in mind. Is this something we want written in the ledger of heaven?
Good. Gilmer?
There's also a Bible verse I found. It's in Matthew 7:20. It says, "Therefore, by their fruits you will know them." And I think it's very important that the person that you're with, she produces good fruits, because you want this woman to have good qualities. You want her to be Christian. So I think it's important for her to be consecrated, to know that she has God, number one in her life. So I think
Fruits of the Spirit.
fruits of the Spirit.
A little tidbit. I always like to watch, if it gets to that stage, the young lady's relationship to her parents, to her dad, her mom, her siblings.
Yeah.
It says a lot.
It
says an awful lot. Okay, last quotes before we wrap this up, because I know we're right at the end of time. Anything else?
There was one. Let me see if I can find it really fast. Where did it go? I don't know if I can find it. It was here somewhere.
You got it.
All right. Any more, Gilmer?
Let's see.
I know you have one more. While they're looking that up, I just want to mention there are 3 great books by Sister White, Counsels on Courtship and Marriage. We found a lot of great material in there. Obviously, it's a whole book. Messages to young people. You're a young person. And letters to young lovers. Ooh, wow.
Hey, that
sounds exciting.
Powerful.
So those 3 books, definitely should look them up and read them, see what Sister White has to say.
Yeah. And it just kind of goes back. One things I wanted to hit on. I mean, Mrs. White says in Letters to Young Lovers, 32.2, it says, "Love is of God. The unconverted heart cannot originate nor produce this plant of heavenly growth, which lives and flourishes only where Christ reigns. So I mean, it's something that I mean, the temptation to want to get a girlfriend. You know, you want to be in the relationship. It's hard to kind of cut back. Um, it's hard to uh, not focus on yourself first. I listened to a sermon the other day. It says when you're looking for someone, it's first a time of being rather than doing. It's kind of focusing on your relationship with God. I know that's something I'm struggling with right now. It's hard. It's hard to take that time. But I just wanted to say that's very important that the unconverted heart, the heart that's not allowing Christ to reign, can't have true love. And it's one of those, the very framework for all relationships, a godly relationship.
And we have to die to self daily.
Yeah.
And as young people, you're in college, you're about to make decisions on career, which have long-term implications, and possibly a spouse, long-term implications.
Right.
If there's ever a time to put self aside and let the Lord come and work within your life and pray regularly for that leading in your life, it is during college.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gilmer, last thing.
I think love is such a powerful word, and I think the greatest chapter that you could, look at is First Corinthians 13. So I just want to leave it at that. Whoever's watching, the greatest gift, First Corinthians 13, talks about love. I think we're kind of short on time.
Yeah.
Well, I got a question for you. One question that came in said, "How should we go about dating if we're not going to an Adventist college? What if we're an Adventist, but we're going not to an Adventist? Do the same rules apply, or is it only for an Adventist school?"
I think for the person it applies. So that person can make
So
it.
everything you said is for that person, not just what school they go to.
I mean, I would say, it kind of goes back to the same. If you're going to, let's say, it's just a secular college, um, it really does lie with who you hang out with. A lot of times, that's where you can meet people. And I mean, we talked about it's not ideal to meet people, over Instagram, but there is, a room where meeting using Instagram or other friends, where friends introduce people, and I think there's definitely room for that. But I think just at the very base, it really depends on who you hang out with. Because if you're hanging out with godly influences, it doesn't really matter where you are. You're going to end up, meeting more godly women. I think that plays a big
And
part.
usually within near most schools, colleges, secular universities, there's usually an Adventist church relatively nearby.
Yeah.
And so these biblical principles should apply to your life regardless of whether you're at work, school, secular college, or anywhere else in the world. These biblical principles are universal. They're biblical for us. And you never know if you might be able to find somebody special out there who is someone that the Lord wants for you also. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
I wish we could go on. You guys are
Yeah,
just
man.
pulling out your best stuff now, and then we have to end.
Yeah, we got to end. I just wanted
just
to
think-
get in and say hi to a few people here. We have someone as far back as New Zealand, Boston, Long Island, New York, Vancouver Island, Denver, Colorado, Pomona, California, and somebody from New York, New York. There were others, families, parents that checked in. One parent said, "Let the parents pick."
That's what they did back in
Yeah,
biblical
that's what they
times.
did. Let the parents pick. By the way, that was your mom. So, anyway, we as the youth group, the youth team, we want you guys to know that we love you, we care for you, we're praying for you. As far as Granite Bay Church is concerned, we got your back, and we want to see you guys tomorrow morning at 9:30. We're not going 10 o'clock. It's 9:30 tomorrow morning because everybody gets to go to church, or a number of you get to go to church. So 9:30 tomorrow morning, we are going live, not 10 a.m. 9:30, guys. This is great, and I don't know about you, but I think we might need to do part 2. Summer's pretty long. I don't know if you guys are up to it. We'll talk about it later. God bless you guys. You guys were awesome tonight. I
Listen,
enjoyed it.
can we end with prayer? I apologize. We forgot to open with prayer. Can
Yeah,
we
that's
end with
okay. Let's pray.
What did you guys?
Ben, please.
Father in heaven, Lord, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing us through this week, for being with us every step of the way, for guiding us. And Lord, as we have gone through these different points of relationships, we know how critical it is to seek those godly relationships and to seek you first in all we do, not just in relationships. And I ask that as we go through our lives, as especially the youth, as they're making friendships, relationships, that you would be the focus, Lord, that they would have that everyday relationship with you, because we know that it shows forth in everything we do. I just pray for your strength. It's not an easy thing. Guide us, give us wisdom, send your Holy Spirit to be with us every step of the way. I ask that we'd have a blessed Sabbath, and you'd be with us, help us have a good rest. In your name, amen.
Amen. Okay, God bless you guys. See you
God
tomorrow
bless
morning,
you.
9:30.
Happy Sabbath.
Perfect. Guys, that was great.